bolts off, and then this can just come straight off. Alrighty. Let's see our damage. That's like halfway through the block. Good morning everybody, how are you going? Today we are going to be sorting out the new engine that we recently picked up for 300 bucks and getting everything onto it so we can reinstall it back into the GTI. You guys may have seen in the previous video that we pulled the old motor out because it was causing us some serious issues, and I just don't want to have to deal with that at the moment. I want to get this GTI running. So we went ahead and picked up a new motor in the back of my 2-litre Golf. Today though, we are going to be accessorizing this whole motor, getting everything onto it, and also doing a few maintenance items like the oil cooler that we recently didn't do because I didn't have a new seal for it. And there's a couple of things I want to do to the gearbox, like a pinion brace. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, just as I explained, this oil cooler needs to be replaced. So we're probably going to start with this. It's a very common issue on all these 1.8Ts and even the 2 liters really. They seem to just corrode from the inside out and then start leaking coolant into your oil. So that's definitely not good. Now, holding onto the oil cooler here is just one big 27mm nut. So we're going to go ahead and loosen that off, and then we can take our oil cooler off. There's our big nut, and then sort of twist. There we go. To break the seal, and then that should come off. Now we have a new oil cooler here with a new seal on it. We can go ahead and slide it on. If you need a new oil cooler, hit up Euro Revolution. I'll leave his website below in the description. But yeah, just throw it on, tighten up the nut, and that's pretty much it. Make sure we face it outwards so we can hook up our coolant lines. There we go. Doesn't have to be too tight, but you want the seal to be completely crushed into here. Should be plenty tight enough that you can't move it side to side, and that's it. So now that we've done the oil cooler, just right above we have our PCV system. So we have our crankcase breather just behind here and a few sensors in the way. Now this here is very common to crack because it's made out of plastic, and that causes a massive vacuum leak for our engine. And especially here, we have a split hose here, and it looks like this has been bodged up before. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this entire bracket here. You don't need to do that. You can probably just take these sensors off, but I have a better condition and a much cleaner bracket on the other motor. So I'm just gonna swap out everything that's here from the other motor. And then take that off. And we're gonna go ahead and pry off this sort of clip that holds on to the crankcase, just like that, and then we can sort of just twist it off. These do have a tendency of cracking, so yeah, just be careful. There we go, and then we'll retrieve the little seal that's inside here. Now, it was pretty evident that it was leaking before because there was just a lot of like sludge and buildup around here, and that's from this leaking. And it is just very common. So yeah, if you haven't replaced it out yet, it is probably good to replace it out, because if it hasn't failed already, it is probably going to fail very soon. So now that we have taken the old one out, we can install our new one. See how this goes. Just sort of throw it in. No. So it needs to go a little bit further down. There we go. And push it on. Perfect. Might as well swap these out whilst we're here. This is just another common plastic thing to crack, so I have a new one here. There we go. Okay, so now that we've done those few things, I think next what we're going to do is flip this motor upside down and have a look in the sump. We're going to clean out the pickup pipe and reseal the sump, just so I don't have to do it later when it's back in the car. So let's flip this motor over. Okay, so now that we have the motor upside down, I've taken the bolt that was holding onto it here just because it was holding onto the sump. And we're going to go ahead and crack all the 10 mils that are around the sump. There's quite a few of them. And then we'll just impact them off. Okay, so we have all our bolts out now. We can go ahead and just sort of fit our pry bar underneath here, and we can just sort of pry the sump off, just like that. And come off. Seems to be pretty clean in here, to be honest. There's a little bit of a gunk, but no necessary buildup, and the oil in here looks pretty clean. The main thing we're looking at when we're in here is this pickup pipe here. So we have our splash tray bolted on here, and then we have our pickup pipe just right here. This is very, very common to get clogged. This is also the oil pump chain. Now, this looks pretty good, not too bad. But we'll go ahead and take off these two 10 mils and then a couple of the other 10 mils on this splash tray, and we can have a look on the bottom end of this motor. Okay, 2 bolts off, and then this can just come straight off, just like that. Got a little O-ring in there, but we're gonna spray this out with brake cleaner. Just get all the gunk off the mesh here. Looks pretty clean to me, but we'll just sort of spray it off just in case whilst we're already here. Now that we have our pickup pipe off, we can go ahead and take off our girdle, or I don't even know what you'd want to call this other than merely a girdle or a baffle, but just 1 bolt off here, and this should just come off. And now we can see the bottom end of our motor. Alright, now that we have everything off, I'm going to go ahead and clean this sort of surface up. I'll go over it with some alcohol just to clean up all the sludge and stuff on it, and then we're going to go ahead and grab a razor blade and run it across to get all the old sealant off. But everything in here looks really, really good. No excessive play on any of the bearings, and everything looks incredibly clean. As you can see the dipstick there, but yeah, everything looks really, really good. I'm very, very happy with the way that this motor has turned out. Don't have to spend too much, and often people worry about having high mileage or higher mileage engines or cars, but this motor has more kilometers than my original motor, but this motor is incredibly more healthy than my other motor. Like, this is day and night compared to my other motor, so I'm very, very happy. Now that we've cleaned up our surface, we're gonna go ahead and start using our razor blade, just trying to get all the old sealant off. Just gonna go ahead and wipe it over again. Now right here we have our rear main seal. This is a bolt down rear main seal compared to a lot of other engines. They just have a push on one that you just sort of smack in. This one here I'm going to be replacing out. I might do it now, I'm not too sure. If I can sort of squeeze a tool down there to take it off, and then we just pry it off, and then we put our new one on, and then we can reseal our whole entire sump again. That's our bottom end all cleaned up, and we also got to clean off the surface on the sump itself. Pickup pipe getting clean now. Just gonna spray it with some brake cleaner on the outside at least, and then on the inside is the most important part. So tap it out. There we go. Look at that. Nice and clean, fresh pickup pipe now. Looks really good, and that'll be perfect to throw back into the sump when we reseal it. Okay, so whilst we're here, I've just obviously moved this arm out of the way just so we can access these bolts. The only reason I'm going to do this and attempt to do this whilst it's against the engine stand is because the RTV that goes on top of this rear main seal is also the same RTV that goes around the sump. So I'm just going to throw on a new rear main and then do it all together. So the offset one and then a flat one. The offset one is the one I have, and I'll show you guys the difference. There we go. Now we can go ahead and take it off. Just get a pry bar. There you go, that's one side. And this side. Got a bit stuck to it, but that is our rear main seal. Okay, so I have a new rear main seal. You don't need any other sealant on these because there's a rubber seal that goes around the face of the motor. Now I've gone ahead and cleaned that up with some brake cleaner and a rag, but also, hot tip, these things come with sort of a little plastic sort of cup, I guess you could say, inside of it. We're going to leave that on and basically push it on, and the end of the crank is going to push that part out and pop it out. This is basically just going to hold the seal open for when we put it onto the motor. So we're going to go ahead and throw this on and see how it goes. Just throw it on exactly like this, put the bolts through and send it, really. That's all you need to do. Make sure that cup lines up, and you also have your little dowels here. And that's it, really. And then, yeah, press it against it, make sure everything's all good. And then we're gonna put all our bolts back in. And that's pretty much it, nice and simple. That's good enough for now. Let's go ahead and seal this sump up and clean it off. Now, this is probably one of the most important parts of this whole entire process. You have to make sure everything is clean for us to lay some sealant down. Now, this would be much harder, you know, up in the engine bay, and this all would be upside down, but much easier like this. Just gotta make sure everything is clean whilst we have one last look. Okay, that's pretty damn dry now. Everything's clean. And I think that's as good as I'm going to get it, really. Now, behind the scenes a little bit, I went ahead and cleaned up our sump. I'm going to make sure there's nothing left in this, like some old RTV and shit. But I did go ahead and pretty much clean this as much as I could. I'm going to dry it out and wipe it completely dry. I did try to clean up the outside a little bit as well. And then we're going to go ahead and lay some RTV down. So first of all, clean this up and then get all the RTV laid out and then throw the sump back on. I'm going to go ahead and throw our little, I guess you could call it a girdle, on. Just one bolt holds this whole entire thing on. This is practically the baffle, and yes, it's made of plastic, just like about everything else on these motors, but the oil in the sump prevents it from cracking, so it looks after the plastic. Be interesting if maybe later down the track I can find a metal one. I'm not too sure if they make that, really. We'll go ahead and tighten up that bolt just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this is our pickup pipe. I got a new O-ring for it earlier. Just a generic O-ring will do too, but we'll go ahead, snug that down on there, and then go ahead and fit it up and throw our bolts in. Now, I actually might throw some oil onto this seal so then it doesn't accidentally pinch it when we throw it on. Maybe throw a bit of oil in there, nice and clean oil, of course. Squish it in there. Maybe just line the bolts up and let the rest do the work. Okay, we've gotten everything back together now. We're gonna go ahead and just quickly wipe everything down for the last time before we hopefully never see it again. Okay, I got some black RTV here. This is just some normal gasket maker. That is what they use on these motors from factory, so that's good enough for me, I guess. But basically we're going to go around the bolts and then like sort of in the middle, so sort of make a line, but you don't want to do too much, otherwise we will have to see this again because you'll block up your pickup pipe with RTV. There we go. Just wait for it to set for a second and then we'll go ahead and plop our sump on top. Okay, time has passed and the sump is ready to go back on. Nice and clean, nothing left in it. I believe it goes on this way onto the motor. Seems about right to me, so let's do this, I guess. Got to make sure everything lines up and then we'll throw the bolts in. That's on. Okay, now that we have the sump all sealed up, all ready to go, I think we're going to go ahead and flip the motor back up the right way again so that we can start installing the turbo and everything else. So there we go. Okay, now that we have the motor flipped over, I think I'm actually going to swap out the metal coolant pipe that runs around the whole entire block. This one is actually slightly different to the one on my other motor, whereas the other one is completely metal all the way up until here as well. So I'm gonna just move this PCV pipe that we just reinstalled out of the way. Just take it out again. There we go. And then, yeah, we got a small 10mm here, and then we can sort of just twist it out. I just prefer the other one, and I've also bent the other one so it actually clears the new oversized inlet pipe as well. Okay, so one 10mm further down on this corner of the block. A bolt on the side of the block here as well. Might try to get a pry bar in between it. Okay, some absolute finessing behind camera, but that is finally off. I want to go ahead and clean up our surfaces where that pipe went and maybe the thermostat area as well. And then we can throw on our new pipe and then get onto the turbo. Bit of brake cleaner and some Scotch-Brite. Okay, so I have the new coolant hard pipe going in now. As you guys saw before, the hose that came off here was a soft hose that went up and over here to our turbo line in the expansion tank. Whereas this one has just a full metal steel pipe, and I had bent the bracket when it was on the old motor so it fit around the shifter bracket and also the inlet pipe, and I also went ahead and sanded it down and resprayed it so it looks all fresh. Put a new seal on it as well. I'm just hoping this goes on with not too much finessing. Okay, after a lot of finessing, it is finally in. Pretty much I tried throwing it in with the new seal completely dry. After some thought, I put some engine oil on it. You know, a little bit of oil isn't gonna hurt being the coolant system. And that basically just popped it straight in after a bit of wiggling. Now I have to put the PCV pipe back on. Alrighty. Now let's do the turbo. Now that we're on the exhaust side, we're going to go ahead and just clean up surfaces where our gaskets are going to sit, like that. And then we're going to go ahead and throw our gasket on. There we go, like that. And then our exhaust manifold can go on. There we go. And then we're going to throw on all our exhaust manifold nuts on. Now every single one of these nuts has their own little washer, so we have to throw those on. There's sort of like, it's very, very slight, but these little washers, one side has a sort of tapered, sort of smooth edge, whereas the other side has a hard edge. So the flatter side needs to go on the exhaust manifold. And then now all our 12mm nuts. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it became very easy there to turn that. And I've snapped our stud inside the head. I don't even know what to do anymore, really. That's very, very annoying. Man, I was excited to get this turbo back on. Alrighty, let's see our damage. Looks like it's pretty deep, to be honest. That's very, very annoying. That's like halfway through the block. Well, that's done for today, I guess. Might have to come back tomorrow and think of a way to take that off. That is not going to be easy. Alrighty guys, so it's the next day after our bit of a predicament with the stud snapping. I've gone ahead and ordered a new one and we have an easy out. So then hopefully that works to get the old stud out. If not, we might have to drill it out and re-tap some new threads, which I would not like to do. So I'm hoping for the best and then we can throw on our turbo and everything else on. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for the new studs, we might as well go ahead and get the intake side back on and get our timing covers. We are also missing the thermostat flange and the side flange. Now I need to order a new thermostat for it anyways. But otherwise, let's get this side of the motor done so I can actually see it complete. And that will give me a bit more inspiration to get the other side done when that exhaust stud shows up. There we go. Whilst we're using a hex bit, I thought we'd go ahead and swap out these old crank bolts. One of them in a previous video when I was doing all the timing and stripping this motor down, I actually stripped one of these bolts. I don't know how, but all I know is that these were extremely tight and it just rounded itself out. So I went to Volkswagen and paid a pretty penny for some brand new ones. So I'm going to throw those in and then clean up this side with all the timing covers, and then I think that's pretty much it. Awesome. Let's get the rest of these timing covers back on. This is going to be a tight fit, but we'll try our best to get this on. There we go. And that one goes on top. And then we also have to try to get this PCV hose on as well. It's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze, but there we go. Sensor out. Might just clean it up a little bit with a rag and then throw in the other one. This one is just a bit different and will work with my harness. This is a square sensor, as you guys can see, and the other one is more of a, I don't know, a half oval shape, I guess you could call it. Just another difference between the years. On the flange here, you have this, which is the temp sensor, and then further over here, you have the radiator fan temp sensor. I'm not too sure. I think it might be just the fan switch, to be honest, but that's another difference. It's really interesting. Again, like there's just so many little differences that they made with these motors, and honestly it really doesn't make a massive difference, but mine's just a little bit older than the others, so there is that slight difference. Okay, so we have most of the motor back together. Now the other thing before we wrap it up today, the thing I wanted to do was go ahead and sort out the pinion brace for our new gearbox. Now, a little while ago, we picked up that motor over there, which only has 60,000 kilometers, which we got from an A3 that was wrecked. And over here is the gearbox to match. Now, the A3 motor that I have over there, I am planning to build maybe later down the track, or at least have a spare for the S3 because that is a small port head. But the gearbox on the S3 is a 6-speed and this is a 5-speed. So it is a perfect match for the GTI and it is very low kilometers. So I thought whilst we already have everything out, I'd rather not have any issues with the gearbox as well. So we're going to be throwing this gearbox in as well. So I'm going to go ahead and move it over there, and I'll show you guys what we're doing to it. Okay, so this here is the O2J gearbox out of the A3. It is the exact same as a lot of the other GTI or 1.8T chassis. You either have an O2J or an O2M. The only difference is that one is a 5-speed like this, and the O2M is a 6-speed, which came in the R32s, the Audi TT Quattros, the S3, and a couple other cars maybe. Now, the issue with these gearboxes is this pinion here. Now, the main pinion here is what holds all the gears, and when these get a good little thrashing, or people enjoy themselves a bit too much, these can tend to end up getting a bit of play or move around and then end up shearing all the gears off. Now, that is not great at all, so a little remedy is to use a pinion brace. Now, I believe it goes something like that in here. Now, we might have to shave down a little bit of the inner bell housing, but this will allow the pinion to not move and hopefully make this gearbox pretty much bulletproof. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and undo these bolts here and just see what sort of clearance we may have. I've just heard from a couple of people that you might need a clearance a little bit, but otherwise they fit and bolt on directly. So these are 13mm bolts. So let's go ahead and crack those loose. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and zip those off. Now, we can go ahead and size this up. I think the main one is here. So this little thing, this little notch here, is stopping this from completely bottoming out. I think that's really it, really. We might have to shave a little bit off this notch here too, but otherwise that'll just bolt straight onto there, and then yeah, that is completely cooked. Now, actually, before we go ahead and start grinding away, I'm going to just make a few markings. Can't really make a marking where we need to grind, but I'll make a marking here and then make a marking on the other side, and then we just need to sort of grind in between those two markings. I'm guessing we need to grind away quite a bit, so let's see how this goes, I guess. Well, it seems my Dremel has died, so I think at this rate, after the snapped exhaust bolt, like everything just seems like it's not quite going well, but that is okay. I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to stop, just like you guys shouldn't. You guys should keep going, even when things aren't going their way. And I'm not just talking about cars. Keep striving for greatness and keep pushing, because I know I want to get this GTI done, and even though there's things stopping me from doing that, I'm not going to stop, because I want to pursue my dreams and make this GTI exactly how I've wanted it for over like 4 years now. So it's definitely not going to stop me. I need to get a new Dremel, and I'm waiting on those new exhaust studs. Now, by the time you guys are watching this, this is well over Christmas, but it is now midnight, which is Christmas Day for me. But I hope you guys enjoyed your Christmas. I know the video is probably a bit later, and it's probably more close to New Year's by the time you guys are watching this, if you guys are watching it when it comes out. So happy Christmas to you guys, and probably happy New Year's as well. I hope you guys quite enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys are proud of yourselves for doing this year. I know for me, it is getting the S3 up and driving. That thing was a bit of a pain in the ass, but is now one of my most favorite cars, and I can't wait to do the same with the GTI. It is going to be a lot more than what the S3 needed, but you know, this thing has been a project of mine for quite a long time, and I think it's well overdue to get done. So it is what it is. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys very much enjoyed coming on with the adventure of this 1.8T. I'm not going to be stopping there, and hopefully by the next video we have it completely done and maybe even thrown back into the car. So if you guys are keen for that, make sure to subscribe down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.